Oke, sudah ada berempat sambil nunggu yang lain. Kita buka saja ya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi semuanya. Oke, kita mulai saja. Pagi ini kita akan mulai perkuliahan. Yang pertama tentang dasar telekomunikasi, yaitu materinya adalah sejarah perkembangan telekomunikasi. Suara saya ada ya? Halo?
Ada, Pak.
Oke.
Ya, ada, Pak.
Ya, kita mulai sejarah telekomunikasi ya. Nah, definisi telekomunikasi sendiri, kalau kita ada dua referensinya. Yang pertama adalah menurut Undang-Undang Republik Indonesia nomor 36 tahun 1999 ya, tentang telekomunikasi. Telekomunikasi adalah setiap pemancaran, pengiriman, dan atau penerimaan dari setiap informasi dalam bentuk tanda-tanda, isyarat, tulisan, gambar, suara, dan bunyi melalui sistem kawat, optik, radio, atau sistem elektromagnetik lainnya. Ini definisi menurut Undang-Undang nomor 36 ya. Ini biasanya referensi buat semua ya, termasuk Undang-Undang ITE juga menggunakan, salah satunya adalah menggunakan referensi ini ya. Nah, sedangkan menurut ITU sendiri, jadi kita biasanya undang-undang kita mengikuti referensi yang di internasional, yaitu ITU ya, International Telecommunication Union. Ini adalah konvensi dari International Telecommunication Union di Jenewa tahun 1992. Telecommunication itu adalah setiap transmisi, emisi atau penerimaan dari sinyal, tanda-tanda, tulisan, gambar atau suara, ya, atau hasil intelligence dari pengolahan dari kawat, radio, optik atau sistem elektromagnetik yang lainnya. Jadi memang undang-undang kita untuk referensinya, definisi dari telekomunikasi ini menggunakan definisi dari ITU juga ya. Oke, yang pertama kita sambil lihat ini sejarah telekomunikasi dunia ya, sambil lihat dulu.
You could have a lab like this for free. Seriously, sign up to win over $300,000 in test and measurement gear as part of Key.
Hi friends, I am Joy.
And I am Jennifer.
Welcome to the world of communication.
So, today we are going to show you the evolution of communication.
What differentiates us human from animals is the way we communicate with each other. Here we will show you a brief history of how communication system evolved. The whole journey of communication started with the caveman. The cavemen used to gather around fire to discuss their day-to-day activities. We can compare this to modern-day social networking sites such as Facebook. The one sudden day they decided to record their activities or knowledge. The cavemen then started to inscribing on the caves. We can compare this to modern-day blogging. The problem with this communication method was it was localized. When people started moving out of the cave, long-distance communication became very important.
Smoke signal. This was the first long-distance communication. It was used in Northern America where each tribe has its own signaling system. A smoke from top of the hill signified danger. Smoke signal was also used in ancient China. The soldiers stationed at the Great Wall would alert for danger using smoke signal from tower to tower. In this way they could transmit message as far as 750 kilometers within a few hours. The smoke signal is still used in Vatican to indicate the selection of new pope.
Pigeons. Due to their natural homing ability, pigeons were extensively used for long-distance communication. The pigeons were used by Persians, Romans, Greeks, Mughals. In 19th century, pigeons were also used to transmit stock quotations from one city to another. Cherami, a homing pigeon, was awarded the French War Cross for her services during World War I. TV series Game of Thrones has shown the use of raven instead of pigeon for long-distance communication.
Pony Express. From ancient time, kings have been using human messenger to relay messages. Pony Express was the first of its kind mail service delivering messages, mails, newspapers and small packages by horseback using small relay stations. It is regarded as the first courier service. It was used in the mid-19th century to communicate between East Coast and West Coast of America.
Semaphore flag. Semaphore flag was used in maritime during the late 19th century. The word semaphore is derived from Greek word sema meaning sign, and pharo meaning bearer. It is the telegraphy system conveying information at a distance by means of visual signals with handheld flags, rods and disc. It is still used during underway replenishment at sea and is acceptable mode of communication for emergency.
Telegraph. Telegraphy was the greatest breakthrough in the field of communication. Although the smoke signal and semaphore flags were different form of telegraphy, but the harnessing of electricity in the late 19th century gave birth to electric telegraphy. Morse code is still used globally as a mode of communication. Till a couple of decades ago, telegraphy was the most popular form of long-distance communication. The US discontinued the use of telegraph in 2006. India's BSNL-owned telegraph service ended in 2013. It was reportedly the world's last existing true electric commercial telegraph system.
Radio. The term radio in Latin means beam of light. In 1864, James Clerk Maxwell showed mathematically that electromagnetic waves could propagate through free space. The effects of electromagnetic waves were observed before and after Maxwell, but no one could detect its presence. In 1886, Heinrich Hertz established the existence of electromagnetic waves. In 1888, he demonstrated that one could produce and detect electromagnetic waves, which we today call as radio waves. In November 1894, Jagdish Chandra Bose at Town Hall of Kolkata ignited gunpowder and rang a bell kept at a distance using microwave. During the same time, an Italian scientist Guglielmo Marconi made an electric bell which went off during lightning. This was just the beginning of a whole new era of distant communication. Early 20th century radio system transmitted message using continuous waves only. Amplitude modulation was demonstrated for the transmission of voice and music, but with little success. World War I accelerated the development of radio for military communication. After the war, commercial radio broadcasting began in 1920 and was a big hit. World War II again accelerated the development of wartime purposes for aircraft and land communication.
Telephone. Until now, real-time communication was confined to diplomatic purposes or for broadcasting. Still, telegram was the fastest one-to-one communication used by common people. In 1876, Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone. At first, the benefits of a telephone exchange were not exploited. Instead, telephones were leased in pairs to a subscriber, who had to arrange for a telegraph contractor to construct a line between them, for example between a home and a shop. It was a luxury that only rich people could afford. Later, telephones took advantage of the exchange principle already employed in telegraph networks. Each telephone was wired to a local telephone exchange, and the exchanges were wired together with trunks. Networks were connected in a hierarchical manner until they spanned cities, countries, continents, and oceans. This was the beginning of the Public Switch Telephone Network or PSTN. The major progress took place after the Second World War.
So friends, here we have seen history of communication started from caveman to telephone. But this is just the beginning of a golden era in the field of communication.
In the next video we will talk about how communication system evolved from wired to wireless and local to global. Also we will see the role of government to regulate wireless spectrum, and role of private companies to develop existing network of 4th generation.
So friends, don't forget to subscribe our channel and
Oke, mudah-mudahan tadi terlihat jelas ya, kalau gambaran sistem telekomunikasi perkembangannya mulai dari asap ya, kemudian sampai ke asap, merpati, kemudian sampai ada mulai Morse code, kemudian sampai ke wireless ya, tadi perkembangannya. Jadi ini kurang lebih rangkumannya. Jadi sejarah itu mulai dari asap, kemudian secara detailnya adalah ada penemuan semapur ya, kemudian telegraf, kemudian ada telegraf elektromagnetik ya perkembangannya, kemudian ini tadi telegraf listrik, ini mulai ada duplex ya, komunikasi duplex, kemudian Graham Bell mulai menciptakan telepon. Masih telegraf, kemudian terbentuknya ITU pada tahun 1927 ya, mulainya CCIR dulunya, kemudian mulai ada kabel telepon bawah laut, masih tembaga, kemudian mulai ada satelit, menggunakan satelit non geostasioner. Kemudian mulai dari era telepon mobil ya, pakai UMTAS, International Mobile Telecommunication System. Nah ini masih teleponnya masih benar-benar di mobil ya. Kemudian mulai ada modem di tahun 1960 juga, yang menciptakan atau memulainya adalah AT&T, American Telephone and Telegraph. Kemudian ada satelit komunikasi, ada mulai dikenal ASCII ya, untuk standar kode pertukaran informasi menggunakan biner. Nah, yang biasanya untuk memulai LAN itu dia dari, jadi kebanyakan sistem telekomunikasi itu atau perkembangan teknologi itu dimulai dari militer ya. Jadi DARPA ini Departemen Pertahanan Amerika yang memulai mengembangkan ARPANET ya. Kemudian dia dikembangkan hingga menjadi local area network sama network yang kita kenal sekarang untuk IP ya. Nah, di 1975 Bill Gates itu yang Microsoft mengembangkan program basic ya untuk Altair 8800, kemudian mulai dengan Microsoft 84. Nah mulai 80-an ini mulai ada konsep ASDN, koneksi ke segala macam, ada standarisasinya. Jadi kalau untuk koneksi antar negara, antar daerah itu harus ada standarnya. Kita menggunakan standar apa? Biasanya ada bisa X25 ya, X series banyak. Nah untuk signalingnya menggunakan SS7, ini zaman masih tahun sekitar 90-an, kalau di kita 90-an, kalau di luar negeri mungkin 84, di kita 90-an sudah baru atau masih kita gunakan ya. Kemudian mulai ada JPEG. Nah ini pengendaliannya dari tadi hanya sekedar kode Morse, pindah ke audio, audio pindah ke gambar. Ini mulai ada JPEG, ya. Kemudian selanjutnya local area network, perkembangannya ada PSTN, ada G711, ya, ada standar G, ada standar I dot, ya. Kalau untuk videonya mulai ada H261, ya. Ini untuk codingnya. Jadi tadinya mulai kode, audio, gambar, sekarang ke video, ya. Nah, tahun 80 telekomunikasi di seluruh dunia mulai mengganti analog dengan multiplexing, ya. Jadi kalau analog itu seperti telepon zaman dulu atau seperti audio yang kita pakai di rumah, ya, itu analog, kabelnya koneksinya masih analog. Nah, di tahun 80 dunia tuh udah mulai pindah ke digital, dan kita seperti halnya penggantian telepon rumah dengan modem. Sekarang itu berarti telepon rumah udah berganti dengan digital. Nah, sebelumnya teknologi digital kapan? Pada saat telepon generasi kedua mulai masuk ke Indonesia, kalau di kita, ya. Jadi pada saat kalau teknologi pertama MPS itu masih analog, setelah itu mulai ada GSM. Jadi zaman dulu pertama kali masuk adalah AMPS, kemudian GSM, tapi zaman dulu teknologinya masih sangat lambat, ya, jadi masih sangat jelek sekali. Makanya GSM itu sering disebut geser sedikit mati, karena memang waktu pertama kali keluar telepon itu selain besar, kita harus diam, nggak kemana-mana, nggak jalan-jalan, nggak bergerak sedikit pun itu langsung mati, suaranya langsung hilang. Makanya kalau dulu sering disebut GSM itu gerak sedikit mati. Oke, ini masih terus berkembang, ya. Pengembangan mulai dari standar video conference, standar VoIP, standar TV kabel, ya, penomoran internasional, kemudian sampai IPTV yang terakhir, ya. Sekarang kita sudah mulai banyak mengenal sekarang IPTV dengan berkembangnya internet. Kita lanjut lagi. Nah, oke. Sebelum saya mulai ke yang berikutnya, ada pertanyaan nggak tentang teknologi? Kalian kan mungkin anak-anak yang berbeda dengan kami, jadi teknologinya ini masih terlalu awal-awal pengembangan teknologi seperti itu, gitu. Mungkin ada pertanyaan dari video sebelumnya, silakan. Kita sambil diskusi aja, ya. Nih, kalau di saya, Haidar, kesannya atau tentang teknologi telekomunikasi yang tadi gimana, Dar?
Semakin kesini semakin berkembang gitu, Pak.
Sebelumnya udah tahu belum?
Dari komunikasinya, ya.
Iya, sebelumnya teknologi yang pernah kita pakai
Pak.
itu sudah pernah tahu belum? Kebayang sebelumnya seperti apa enggak?
Ya, paling yang kebayang tuh cuma macam telegraf gitu nih, Pak.
Oke. Karena ada di film-film, ya.
Ya, banyak di film luar negeri kan suka ada apa yang pakai gitu, Anda.
Oke. Jadi kalau zaman awal-awal telepon itu yang memindahkan tuh biasanya ada orang, kalau mungkin nanti kalau kalian sempat melihat-lihat film sebelumnya, ya. Kalau ada orang perempuan yang nyolok-nyolok jack itu, pindah-pindah.
Ya.
Nah, itu switching zaman dulu. Switching itu benar-benar switching, ya, memindahkan jalur telepon dari A ke B, A ke Z, misalkan A ke Y, itu pasti benar-benar jack, jumper. Kebayang. Nah, dengan adanya teknologi komputer, switching itu sekarang sebelumnya memang ada switching mekanik, ya. Dia akan pindah sendiri. Jadi sebelumnya ada switching mekanik, kayak memindahkan jalur, dari A mau connect ke B, dia pindahkan switchingnya A ke B, A ke Z, gitu, ya. Setelah itu mulai berkembang teknologi digital, sekarang switchingnya sudah digital, ya. Dan kalau yang terbaru lagi dengan IP, switchingnya udah nggak ada, bukan switch lagi ya, istilahnya paket. Jadi udah si suara kita yang dikirim digital itu akan mencari suara kita yang kita kirim, ini akan mencari alamat sendiri dia. Jadi kalau dulu kita yang mengarahkan ya, kita yang mengarahkan jalurnya lewat mana, misalkan contohnya dari Tasik mau ke Bandung gitu ya. Kalau dulu kita mengarahkannya adalah oke, yang mobil A misalkan ada kendaraan A sama B gitu ya. Mobil A lewat jalurnya jalur Garut, mobil B lewat jalurnya jalur Malangbong misalkan, seperti itu. Nah, kalau zaman dulu masih manual seperti itu ya. Nah, kalau sekarang justru mobilnya udah tahu sendiri gitu. Ini pokoknya tujuannya Bandung. Silahkan kalian ambil jalur tercepat misalkan. Begitu dia cek Google Map, oh ternyata lewat Malangbong ada macet, ada kendaraan yang mogok di Nagreg misalkan. Bukan di Nagreg. Ada kendaraan yang macet di Malangbong misalkan ya. Nah, begitu lihat kondisinya seperti itu, si mobilnya kan akan milih sendiri, saya lewat Garut saja lah. Begitu lihat di Garut ternyata juga macet, dia cari alternatif lain kan. Bisa lewat Ciamis misalkan, atau bisa lewat Cikijing misalkan ya, muternya. Nah itu kalau sekarang teknologinya hampir seperti itu ya. Pokoknya saya ini nyampe Bandung. Nah ini contoh videonya sambil kalian lihat-lihat. Ini kenapa? Halo? Kenapa pada putus-putus ya? Pada keluar masuk. Oke, Muhammad Haidar, kita mute dulu ya. Halo, Rani, kenapa keluar masuk ya?
Iya Pak, sinyalnya ini di sininya lagi hujan.
Oke. Ini sebentar aja.
Hi, this is Rob Shore, Director of Global Technical Sales for Corient. In this video, what I want to do is take a look at two different types of network architectures when building transport network: circuit switch network architectures and packet switch network architectures. The key aspect of this video is try to understand the differences between them and how they work, how they operate, and even some of the implications that has when building different networks. We're going to start off by taking a look at circuit-based transport networks. Circuit-based networks operate by transmitting frames at very regular intervals. So for example, let's say I have this location that I have 3 incoming services, and I have frames coming in at, let's say, 1 frame per second on each of these individual interfaces. One of the things I can do is I can aggregate and multiplex those different physical interfaces onto a single interface that's transmitting information at 4 times the speed, right, at 4 frames per second. And the way I do this is by each one of these frames is marked as a different time slot. So I have 4 different time slots to work with for these 4 different frames per second. Now what I'll do is I'll map the traffic from each of these individual clients onto a specific time slot. So the traffic coming from this first port, I'll map that to time slot 1, from port 2 to time slot 2, and so on. Of course, I can map them to any time slot, but the idea here is I have a time slot that's associated with a specific port, and that time slot is providing the same speed of services. I'm transmitting frames at the same rate on that time slot as this incoming signal, because again, I'm doing it 4 times as fast, so I've got 4 times 4 frames per second, the combination of these 4 physical interfaces at 1 frame per second. Now the idea again is I'm transmitting frames at regular intervals. Time slot 1 is always first, second, time slot 2 is second. So again, the time slots are always in the same order. So when I arrive at the next destination, I can actually steer traffic and drop traffic strictly based on time slot. Essentially, if I want to drop traffic from this port and send that through the network to this port, I know that traffic from this port is being mapped onto time slot 1, and at this intermediate location, I can just instruct it to drop traffic from time slot 1. Now I'm going to be counting the frames, and I'm going to look what's ever in time slot 1, and on every time slot 1, I can extract that and drop it out the port. And here I'm dropping all the traffic from time slots 1 and 3. So again, this is the idea on how I get traffic from the client side onto an aggregated line side, and then how I drop that traffic at intermediate locations. Of course, now I've dropped time slots 1 and 3, so on the next transmission out the other direction, time slots 1 and 3 are now empty. So I can also at the same time add traffic to time slot 1. Right now I'm sending the information out, and I can add this purple traffic to take the place of the green traffic that was dropped and filled in now into time slot 1. But you will notice something interesting, right? One of the key aspects of circuit-based transmission is they transmit frames in the same order on a very regular basis. Meaning, even though I don't have any information in time slot 3, I'll still transmit it. I'll still transmit empty frames to maintain my frame order. This is a big plus and minus for circuit-based networks. One of the benefits, of course, is that because I have frames at very regular intervals, these types of services are inherently very reliable because I know frames are going to come at very regular intervals, and if I ever miss a frame, I immediately know there's a problem because I'm expecting frames, or if the frames come out of order for any reason, I'll know that right away. Right, so that's one of the big benefits. One of the downsides, though, is because I have very specific mappings from clients to time slots, and those time slots come at regular intervals, what I end up really with a network here that's a bunch of fixed size pipes. Yeah, I can have an aggregated pipe here, but that's really a combination of these smaller pipes, and each of those pipes are very fixed sizes, right? Because time slot 1 is only transmitted every 4th frame. So I get very consistent, very inherently reliable networks, but not very flexible because these pipes are very fixed sizes. And essentially, even if I have no information to transmit on one pipe, I'm still going to send the empty frame, so nobody else can use that bandwidth. It's just an empty frame that goes through the network. So this is really the fundamentals of circuit-based transport networks. Now let's take a look at packet-based transport networks, which look very different. The idea with packet-based networks is it only transmits information when there's information to transmit. The idea is here, if I have a pipe here that I can transmit 4 frames per second, and there's nothing coming in, I'm not going to transmit anything. It's just going to sit there with nothing going on. Then when a frame comes in, I'll transmit that frame. And then I'll wait for the next frame. And when the next frame comes in, I'll transmit that frame. But one of the real benefits of this, right, is that this bandwidth now can be accessible to any of these client-side interfaces, really at any rate. So if I have a burst of traffic coming from one port, let's say I got 3 frames coming all at once, and nobody else is using this bandwidth, that bandwidth can be consumed and completely dedicated to that one service. So again, what I have here is a much more flexible pipe that can be used by any of these interfaces, and really at any rate. So now the idea, though, is that because I don't have this consistent time slot where I can designate and identify and steer traffic just based on counting and the time slots that the frames come in at, I need another mechanism. This mechanism is called labels to steer traffic. The idea is I can add these labels, and by the way, when I say label, it's just a generic term I'm using. It could be VLANs, MAC addresses, IP addresses, LSPs. It could be anything. I'm just generically using the term label. But the idea is I can use these labels now. In fact, I need these labels to help me steer traffic in different directions, because I can't count. There's no definitive time that this traffic is going to come in. So as I go across the network and I arrive at this intermediate location, I instruct this location to say, hey, take anything with label 3, look at all the labels of all the incoming traffic, anything with label 3, and drop it out this port. So that's the idea. So now and same thing for adding traffic, right? I can add traffic, go from this port, look for anything with label 5, and add that to the stream. So right, so now as the traffic comes in at all these different rates, I can multiplex it together. I can flexibly use this bandwidth on this pipe. I get this intermediate location. I can add and drop and steer traffic and aggregate traffic pretty much in any way, just by managing these different labels. Now, the benefit of that, of course, is I can more flexibly use the bandwidth on this pipe. But the other benefit of that is that I'm not really restricted on a per port basis, right? With circuit-based networks, I look at everything on a port. I don't read any of it. I just take everything on that port and map it into one of my time slots. With packet-based network, I can actually read the individual labels. This now enables me to take traffic from an individual port and steer traffic with different labels on that port to different destinations. So on this one physical port coming in here, I can drop some traffic, send some traffic through in pretty much any bandwidth and any kind of direction. So it's not only significantly more flexible, it's also significantly more efficient. And these are some of the benefits of packet-based networks. Now, having said that, packet-based networks don't have the inherent reliability that circuit-based networks have, right? Because at circuit-based networks, I'm having frames come at very regular intervals. I inherently get reliability and a lot of operational features. With packet-based networks, there's really been a lot of evolution over the last, I don't know, X number of years that integrate some of that function, because you don't get it inherently. So there's a whole host now of protocols that have been developed to ensure that packet-based networks can now achieve the same level of reliability, and actually in some cases even better reliability than circuit-based networks. But it has been one of the historical issues of packet-based networks that they weren't as reliable as circuit-based networks. I do think that the industry has well overcome those challenges now, right? And as I said, I think packet-based networks can achieve at least the same level of reliability as circuit-based networks, and in some cases, as I said, even better reliability. So essentially, right, just to summarize, Right, what we've got here is a network based still on these kind of pipes, right, but really not so much pipes as much as flows, right, because pipes kind of implies a fixed base size of traffic flow, and really what I have here is a flexible pipe, right, where I can have multiple flows across it, and those flows can be basically any size. This also provides another really significant benefit. The idea is because I can share the bandwidth on this one pipe, right, I can put this one 10 gig link up between it, but because it's not going to transmit anything unless there's information to transmit. What it enables me to do now is share that bandwidth over more of my client-side interfaces. So for example, I can have 4 10 gigs worth of traffic coming in, but if I count on the fact that not all 4 of them are going to be transmitting at 10 gig all the time, I can actually multiplex all those together into a single 10 gig pipe going out. Now again, they can't all go at 10 gig at any time, although any one of them could go at 10 gig at any one time, and as long as nobody else is using this bandwidth, I can get the full 10 gig of information from any one client to the line. But the whole idea behind this is I'm counting on the fact that not all of these are going to be going at full rate, and this enables me now to provide more services out of my client side, where I can provide more high-speed services without having to dedicate bandwidth through the core of my network for each one of these physical interfaces. I can count more on the nature of the way people use bandwidth, which is more bursty and really, goes up and down over time. So again, this is another one of the big benefits of a packet-based transport solution, is the ability to aggregate traffic across multiple interfaces onto smaller, more efficient line-side network transmissions. So this essentially is the kind of the sum of the difference between circuits and packets, right? Circuit-based network uses what I call this per port-based mapping, where a single physical interface and all the traffic on that physical interface is mapped to a specific pipe on the line side, and that pipe is a very specific size, a fixed size, right? And I'm matching now physical interfaces to network pipes. All right? So again, the nice part is it comes with a lot of inherent reliability, and again, it's very definitive the way that these networks work. On the packet side of things, you have a much more flexible based solution now, where I can take all of these different client-side interfaces and I can multiplex them together into these line sides, and they all share the bandwidth on the line side, right? Enable me more flexibly use that bandwidth because I'm steering things based on labels rather than based on time slots and ports. I can also steer the traffic more flexibly in the network. Okay. Again, there are pluses and minuses to both of these different implementation types, and not one solution is perfect for every solution. But having said that, I do have another video, if you'd like to check that out, that talks more detail about packet-based networks and some of what I think are the very definitive advantages that packet.
Oke, jadi itu gambarannya. Ini sudah 1, 2, oke, ada 8 ya. Mohon di videonya dihidupkan ya, saya absen dulu. Oke, Muhammad Haidar hadir ya. Saya mulai dari atas. Hadir, Nurma hadir. Angga ada. Muhammad Adrifa hadir. Rani hadir. Nizar lagi kemana, Zar? Randy sama Sen ada ya? Oke, hadir semua, simpan ya. Kita lanjut. Silakan dimatikan lagi videonya untuk menghemat bandwidthnya ya. Oke. Saya lanjut. Ini berarti jadi memang kalau jaringan yang kita pakai sekarang, kalau jaringan zaman dulu ya, seperti kereta api, itu jaringannya khusus tertentu ya, kayak misalkan Jakarta Bandung ya relnya rel itu gitu ya. Kemudian kalau misalkan bis gitu ya, bis Damri, bis Budiman ya jalurnya lewat situ gitu. Nah kalau teknologi sekarang seperti saya diulang lagi ya, tadi paket switch itu udah nggak ngelihat bisnya apa, naik kereta, apakah naik pesawat, apakah naik kapal laut, itu terserah mana yang available gitu ya. Kalau misalkan dia antri di kereta ternyata penuh, ya dia tinggal pindah ke bis. Bisnya ternyata mogok misalkan, dia pindah ke kendaraan yang lain gitu ya. Jadi kalau dengan paket suite itu udah nggak ngelihat lagi jalurnya lewat mana ya. Jadi kondisi sekarang ini di dunia ya, kalau zaman dulu harus ada interkoneksi antara operator Telkom misalkan dengan Telkom Malaysia, dengan Telkom Jepang, dengan Telkomnya Amerika, untuk koneksi antara Indonesia dengan Amerika, dengan Jepang. Nah itu koneksinya memang khusus, ada kabel koneksi fiber, apakah melalui satelit, itu didedikasi buat komunikasi itu. Nah kalau sekarang udah nggak ngeliat lagi karena udah ada internet. Jadi internet ini gabungan router ya. Jadi router itu kayak mungkin ibaratnya router itu kayak JNE ya, kayak JNE, kayak JNT. Dia cuma nerima paket, dia nyalurkan aja ke arah mana. Mungkin di dalam JNT sendiri nggak ada, dia bisa bekerja sama dengan operator lain ya. Maksudnya mungkin dia nggak perlu punya kendaraan sendiri yang mengirim barang sampai ke Surabaya misalkan. Dia udah punya truk yang bisa sharing dengan yang lain. Ya. Jadi intinya teknologi sekarang adalah memanfaatkan bandwidth semaksimal mungkin ya. Jadi seefisien mungkin kita menggunakan bandwidth, tidak ada bandwidth yang nganggur seharusnya ya. Jadi karena sudah terkoneksi melalui router ya, kita bisa tinggal kirim aja, pokoknya alamatnya tujuannya ini. Dari telepon A ke telepon B, tujuannya ini. Ya problemnya memang adalah reliabilitas tadi ya, seperti dibilang tadi sama Robertnya. Kemudian juga selain reliabilitas, delay biasanya. Ada delay, ada jitter. Tapi sekarang dengan semakin berkembangnya internet, delay sama reliability itu sudah bisa diatasi ya. Oke, ini video terakhir untuk yang perkembangan telepon ke 5G ya.
You can have a lab like this for free. Seriously, sign up to win over $300,000 in test.
Has it ever struck your curious mind how 4G evolved from simple push-to-talk system? Is there any governing body which regulates the spectrum? What kind of services will we have in the next generation of communication? So friends, let's start the journey of wireless communication. Mobile radio telephones were introduced for military communications in the early 20th century. Car-based telephones was first tested in St. Louis in 1946. This system used a single large transmitter on top of a high-rise building. A single channel was used for sending and receiving, similar to a half-duplex system. To talk, the user pushed a button that enabled transmission and disabled reception. Due to this, these became known as push-to-talk systems in the 1950s. To allow users to talk and listen at the same time, UMTAS, Improved Mobile Telephone System, was introduced in the 1960s. It used two channels, one for sending and one for receiving, bringing telecommunication to a full duplex mode.
In the 1970s, private companies have started developing their own systems to evolve the existing system further. Those private systems are Analog Mobile Phone System used in America, Total Access Communication System and Nordic Mobile Telephone used in parts of Europe, and Japanese Total Access Communication System used in Japan and Hong Kong. Independently developed systems are called as first generation communication. It was introduced in 1982 by Bell Labs and popularly known as Advanced Mobile Phone System (UMTAS). The key idea here was to divide geographical areas into cells, and each cell was served by a base station so that frequency reuse can be implemented. As a result, UMTAS could support 5 to 10 times more users than UMTAS. Major concern for the first generation was weak security on air interface, full analog mode of communication, and no roaming. Now, to implement roaming, individual organizations started working under one umbrella, European Telecommunication Standard Institute (ETSI), and developed second generation systems.
Second generation cellular telecom networks were commercially launched in 1991 in Finland based on GSM standards. It could deliver data at the rate of up to 9.6 kbps. Three primary benefits of 2G networks over their predecessors were: phone conversations were now digitally encrypted. It was significantly more efficient on the spectrum and allowed far greater mobile phone penetration level. 2G introduced data services for mobile starting with SMS text message.
Further, to achieve higher data rate, GSM carriers started developing a service called General Packet Radio Service (GPRS). This system overlaid a packet switching network on the existing circuit switched GSM network. GPRS could transmit data at up to 160 kbps. The phase after GPRS is called Enhanced Data Rate for GSM evolution. It introduced 8 PSK modulation and could deliver data at up to 500 kbps using the same GPRS infrastructure.
During this time, the internet was becoming popular and data services were becoming more prevalent. Post 2.5G, multimedia services and streaming started growing and phones now started supporting web browsing. Development of 3G. 3GPP UMTS, the Universal Mobile Telecommunications System, succeeded EDGE in 1999. This system uses wideband CDMA to carry the radio transmissions, and often the system is referred to by the name WCDMA.
Now, before we go further, let us understand how the governing bodies were developed. In the interest of producing truly global standards, the collaboration for both GSM and UMTS was expanded further from ETSI to encompass regional standards development organizations such as ARIB and TTC from Japan, TTA from Korea, ATIS from North America, and CCSA from China. The successful creation of such a large and complex system specification required a well-structured organization. This gave birth to 3GPP, which worked under the observation of ITUR.
ITUR is one of the sector of ITU. Its role is to manage the international radio frequency spectrum and to ensure the effective use of spectrum. ITUR defines technology families and associates specific parts of the spectrum with these families. ITUR also proposed requirement for radio technology. Three organizations started developing standards to meet the requirements proposed by ITUR: 3GPP, 3GPP2 and IEEE. Evolution of 3GPP started from GSM to long-term evolution advanced. Evolution of 3GPP2 started from IS-95 to CDMA revision B. Evolution of IEEE started from 802.16 fixed WiMAX to 802.16M. Since 3GPP was dominating and widely accepted, we will only incorporate roadmap evolved by 3GPP. Now coming back to third generation.
The goal of UMTS or 3G wireless systems was to provide a minimum data rate of 2 megabits per second for stationary or walking users and 384 kilobits per second in a moving vehicle. 3GPP designated it as Release 99. The upgrades and additional facilities were introduced at successive release of the 3GPP standard. Release 4. This release of the 3GPP standard provided for the efficient use of IP. This was a key enabler for 3G HSDPA. Release 5. This release included the core of HSDPA. It provided reduced delays for downlink packet and provided a data rate of 14 Mbps. Release 6. This included the core of HSUPA. With a reduction in uplink delay, it enhanced uplink raw data rate to 5.74 Mbps. This release also included MBMS for broadcasting services. Release 7. This release of the 3GPP standard included downlink MIMO operation as well as support for higher order modulation of up to 64 QAM. Either MIMO or 64 QAM could be used at a time. Evolved HSPA Plus provided data rates up to 28 megabits per second in the downlink and 11 megabits per second in the uplink.
This brings us to the most awaited part, fourth generation system, long-term evolution. Initial goal of telecommunication was mobility and global connectivity. But as the technology evolved, the services started expanding. Now services were not restricted to voice and SMS only. For this expansion and efficient execution in long-term evolution, whole new architecture was adopted for both non-radio part, which is SAE, system architecture evolution, and radio part using pure IP architecture, packet switching. To fulfill the requirement proposed by ITUR, study group formed and LTE standardization began in 2004. Large number of telecom companies collaborated to achieve their common vision. In June 2005, Release 8 was finally crystallized after a series of refining. Some of the significant features of Release 8 were reduced delays for both connection establishment and transmission latency, increased user data throughput, increased cell edge bitrate, reduced cost per bit implying improved spectral efficiency, simplified network architecture, seamless mobility including different radio access technologies, reasonable power consumption for the mobile devices. These requirements were fulfilled by the advancement in the underlying mobile radio technology. The three fundamental technologies that have shaped the fourth generation system radio interface design were multi-carrier technology, multiple antenna technology, and the application of packet switching to the radio interface. As a result of intense activity by a larger number of organizations, the specifications for Release 8 was complete by December 2007. The first commercial deployment took place by the end of 2009 in Northern Europe. In the subsequent releases, multiple services such as multi-cell HSDPA, HETNet, coordinate multipoint, carrier aggregation, massive MIMO, and many more were targeted for a rich customer experience.
Now, it's time to move from services to multi-services approach. In other words, from LTE Advanced to next generation communication system, which is 5th generation. Features that have been planned to be added in the 5th generation or next generation systems are pervasive networks, where a user can concurrently be connected to several wireless access technologies and seamlessly move between them. Group cooperative relay. This is a technique that is being considered to make the high data rates available over a wide area of the cell. Cognitive radio technology. It would enable the user equipment to look at the radio landscape in which it is located and choose the optimum radio access network, modulation scheme, and other parameters to configure itself to gain the best connection and optimum performance. Smart antennas. Another major element of any 5G cellular system will be that of smart antennas. Using these, it will be possible to alter the beam direction to enable more direct communications and limit interference and also increase overall cell capacity.
So friends, here we have covered history of wireless communication starting from single channel based push to talk system to multiple service based purely advanced digital communication system. In the future videos, we will start exploring fundamental of advanced communication which will help us to understand next.
Oke, kita kembali lagi. Jadi tadi itu kalau perkembangan di wireless mobile ya, mulai dari 1G, 2G, 3G ya. Memang jadi 1G, 3G, 5G ini adalah sebetulnya singkatan dari generasi ketiga, generasi kedua ya. Yang sekarang berarti kita akan masuknya adalah generasi kelima. Dengan perubahannya apa? Kecepatannya ya. Jadi 5G ini sudah mulai masuk di tahun 2020 kemarin, berarti kecepatannya bisa sampai 1 giga ya. Jadi kalian bisa bayangkan kalau tadinya 1 giga hanya bisa kita menggunakan fiber optik, ke depan sudah bisa menggunakan telepon genggam gitu ya. Hanya support 5G. Tapi ini sharing ya, maksudnya bukan sendiri ya. Jadi 1 giga itu dibagi-bagi ke beberapa user. Biasanya satu sel itu sekitar 8 sampai 16 user. Sebentar. Suara. Time mute dulu ya, sebentar ini sampai lewat ya tukang dagangnya. ya, mohon maaf banyak gangguan. Oke ya, jadi perkembangan teknologi itu rata-rata biasanya didekatkan dengan Shannon Law ya. Jadi tingkat kapasitas itu akan sebanding dengan pertama adalah spektrumnya ya. Yang kedua adalah jumlah antena, makanya sekarang WiFi antenanya banyak ya, bukan hanya satu. Kalau zaman dulu satu, sekarang ada yang 2, ada yang 4, mungkin ada 8. Itu teknologinya MIMO, multiple input, multiple output ya. MIMO itu multiple input, multiple output. Jadi sinyal itu tidak hanya diterima kalau tadi ada duplex, ada simplex gitu ya. Itu di sisi sinyal. Kalau sekarang sinyalnya bisa dipecah-pecah lagi, jadi bandwidthnya lebih besar lagi. Jadi antena 1 untuk frekuensi 1, antena 2 untuk frekuensi 2, antena 3 buat frekuensi 3 misalnya. Itu digabung bersama, multiple. Jadi inputnya ada 3, outputnya ada 3. Misalkan kalau ada 6 antena ya. Kalau 2 berarti ya 1 sebetulnya, 1 antena, 1 transmit, 1 receive ya. Nah kalau MIMO itu ya tadi perkembangan jumlah antenanya berapa. Kemudian SNR ya, signal quality. Nah, signal quality ini biasanya tergantung kepada modulasinya. Modulasi, jarak, kemudian teknologinya untuk error correctionnya seperti apa, atau teknologi spektrumnya seperti apa ya, peralatannya, transmitternya. Nah ini yang menjadi patokan Shannon's Law. Jadi semakin besar spektrum, semakin besar antena, semakin banyak antena, semakin kecil SNR, signal to noise ratio. Jadi perbandingan antara sinyal terhadap noise ya. Jadi kalau kita semakin bersih, tidak ada noise atau noise-nya bisa kita hilangkan, kapasitas akan semakin meningkat. Nah, hubungannya nanti SNR, ini nanti ada di bahasan selanjutnya. Jadi signal to noise ratio ya, sinyal utama terhadap noise floor ya. Kita tidak bisa hanya menggunakan booster. Kalau misalkan di TV kita pakai booster ya. Ada booster tambahan sinyal supaya yang diterima oleh TV kita semakin besar. Iya, sinyal semakin besar, tapi noise pun jadi besar juga karena dia tidak difilter dulu. Harusnya difilter dulu ya. Begitu kita sebelum masuk booster ada filter. Dia akan memisahkan frekuensi mana yang kita pakai sebetulnya. Bandwidthnya yang mana gitu ya. Setelah difilter, dibersihkan, baru bisa di-amplified pakai booster. Oke, ini 5G. Teknologinya seperti ini. Kita mulai dari sekarang masih pakai 4G LTE Advance ya, makanya kecepatan semakin cepat sekarang. Kalau di HP, berikutnya adalah 5G. Targetnya sampai 2030. Nah ini yang, masih ada satu video lagi berarti. Mohon maaf. Bentar ya, satu lagi. Nah ini tentang perkembangan telekomunikasi nasional ya. Ini video tentang Telkom.
Indonesia, the world's largest archipelago, blessed with abundant natural wealth and unparalleled cultural diversity. Over the years, Indonesia has been growing, bigger, faster, and stronger. The nation has seen the rise of digital technology and how it now affects every part of life. For Indonesia, Telkom Indonesia is continuously innovating, working hand in hand to lead the nation towards progress. Achieving numerous acknowledgements to build a world-class company. Telkom Indonesia's vision is to be the most preferred digital telco to empower society. This is to be achieved by synergizing all entities. Amanah, kompeten, harmonisch, loyal, adaptive, and collaborative as core values for Telkom Indonesia in implementing the Telkom Way culture in digital era. And through digital network infrastructure, Telkom Indonesia continues to unite Indonesians across oceans, over land, and through the air. Telkom Indonesia is committed to deliver customer-centric products and services and to go along with all of society's activities. Telkom Indonesia believes in more than an idea or notion to build the future. It requires hard work and dedication. Telkom Indonesia aims to be wherever its customers are by building a digital community. That in turn will take part in creating Indonesia's digital economy. For Indonesia, Telkom Indonesia brings people closer together and lets people move with ease. Telkom Indonesia brings the future to our hands. By Telkom Indonesia for Indonesia.
Oke, ya. Kenapa saya membahas Telkom? Karena memang Telkom sebetulnya dari awal itu mereka yang menyediakan jaringan telekomunikasi ya dari sejarahnya ya. Jadi meskipun sekarang banyak persaingan dalam artian banyak pesaing-pesaing swasta nasional maupun internasional yang masuk ya. Karena sebetulnya karena Telkom yang dari awal ya. Jadi selain kita juga harus respect dengan Telkom, itu karena milik negara, BUMN milik negara kita sendiri, juga karena dia yang awal-awal ya, yang membangun jaringan di seluruh Nusantara itu memang Telkom. Dan sebetulnya Telkom sendiri dari yang kalau yang saya pahami dia sudah mulai mengikuti ya. Kalau dulu istilahnya kalau perusahaan dalam negeri itu pasti akan terlambat ya, maksudnya mereka akan banyak kekurangannya karena memang merasa menikmati karena dibantu oleh pemerintah, mereka bisa monopoli gitu ya. Jadi setiap kita perlu pasang telepon, ya udah ke Telkom, harus ke Telkom. Telkom bilang harganya segini, Telkom bilang pemasangannya perlu waktu sebulan, Telkom bilang misalkan ya kalau ada gangguan ya sudah terima saja. Nah, kalau dulu seperti itu, kalau sekarang kan kita nggak seperti itu ya. Ada banyak pilihan. Ya, tinggal pakai HP. Operatornya banyak. Kita bisa tinggal ganti kartu dari Telkomsel, bisa lari. Jadi Telkomsel ini anak perusahaan Telkom ya. Jadi punya negara juga. Cuma kalau Telkomsel itu sharing dengan Singapura. Karena dia sudah dijual sahamnya zaman dulu. Indosat juga dulu punya Indonesia sebetulnya. Tapi sahamnya udah dijual semua. Jadi semua udah milik swasta ya. Kalau sekarang milik, kalau nggak salah milik Qatar, kalau nggak salah, atau Qatar atau daerah Timur Tengah sana pemiliknya. Kita dulu berharap Indosat itu bisa dibeli lagi. Jadi ada 2 operator di Indonesia yang milik negara ya. Ternyata sampai sekarang belum dikembalikan lagi dan tidak dijual karena sahamnya adalah saham terbuka. Jadi kalau dulu Indosat itu memang menggunakan teknologi satelit, itu memang mainannya Indosat ya. Kalau yang untuk teknologi kabel itu Telkom ya. Jadi perkembangan seperti ini bisa kalian lihat di sini, mulai dari ada PTT, kemudian ada Indosat ya di sini. Kemudian sebetulnya ada industri pendukung lainnya, PT Inti, yang biasanya zaman dulu itu bikin telepon, PT Inti. Kemudian ada LAN, Lembaga Elektronika Nasional, ada di Bandung ya. Kemudian ada RFC yang swasta, bikin satelit zaman dulu, industri lain juga banyak. Nah, kalau tadi di awal saya sudah sebutkan adalah dasar sejarah telekomunikasi adalah Undang-Undang Nomor 3699 tentang telekomunikasi. Kemudian berikutnya ada pemisahan penyelenggaraan ya, jaringan telekomunikasi, ada PT Telkom, ada jaringan, ada jasa telekomunikasi ya, kayak internet provider, ini jasa telekomunikasi. Ada telekomunikasi khusus, jadi ada beberapa perusahaan yang memang menggunakan telekomunikasi yang khusus, tidak tergabung dengan jaringan umum ya, misalkan militer, misalkan BUMN ya, makanya PT Kereta juga punya perusahaan telekomunikasi, di dalamnya sebenarnya ada jaringan sendiri, mereka mengadakan sendiri. Atau misalkan PLN, PLN itu untuk mengontrol jaringannya seluruh Indonesia, dia memasang kabel fiber optik ya. Dan itu sendiri, makanya adalah telekomunikasi khusus. Mereka nggak minta ke Telkom, mereka nggak minta ke swasta, mereka bangun jaringan sendiri, fiber optik, bersama dengan kabel groundingnya di jaringan tegangan tinggi ya. Itu punya jaringan telekomunikasi khusus, sampai akhirnya karena bandwidth-nya cukup besar, dia bisa jual ke yang lain. Makanya dibentuk anak perusahaannya adalah Indonesia Comnet Plus, itu dari PLN ya. Kalau dari PT KAI, bukan PT KAI, kalau nggak salah PT Pos zaman dulu. PT Pos itu punya satelit, nah dia bikin PT Jejaring Nusantara, pakai satelit. Jadi beberapa perusahaan yang memang core bisnisnya tidak di telekomunikasi, tapi menggunakan telekomunikasi khusus, akhirnya mengembangkan perusahaan sendiri. Ya. Nah tujuannya adalah supaya tidak ada monopoli ya, seperti saya bilang tadi. Zaman dulu Telkom yang punya, jadi dia monopoli. Harga harus segini, jangka waktu penyelesaian harus seminggu misalkan. Kemudian kalau pemasangan 1 bulan, kita nggak ada pilihan lain. Dengan adanya kompetisi kita punya pilihan ya, bisa menggunakan manapun. Kemudian juga fungsi telekomunikasi sebagai komoditas, ya, jadi bisa dijual ya. Jadi bukan hanya fungsi buat bahwa ini kelengkapan buat perusahaan, kelengkapan buat apa, tapi ini adalah komoditas, bisa menghasilkan value ya. Jadi di dalamnya juga ada value added yang tadinya memang misalkan internet atau video, YouTube lah misalkan ya. Kalau zaman dulu kita yang bayar, mau nonton video kita bayar. Kalau sekarang kebalik, ketika kita bisa upload film, video di YouTube dan memang layak ditonton banyak orang, kita yang dibayar. Nah ini yang disebut komoditas ya. Jadi telekomunikasi itu jadi yang bisa menambah value added ya. atau penambahan nilai. Kemudian, undang-undang ini nanti dijelaskan selanjutnya oleh keputusan Menteri ya, Kepmen, ada macam-macam nanti Kepmennya. Kemudian ada juga Badan Regulasi Telekomunikasi Indonesia. Nah, sekarang BRT ini udah dibubarkan dengan terakhir tahun kemarin kalau nggak salah. Tahun kemarin BRT ini udah dibubarkan, udah nggak ada lagi. Padahal sebetulnya dulu adalah fungsinya adalah mereka yang mendraft aturan-aturan regulasi yang harus berlaku di Indonesia. Biasanya mereka ngambil dari ITUT, atau komunitas-komunitas lain ya, yang penerapannya di Indonesia. Contohnya adalah WiMAX misalkan, penerapan teknologi WiMAX, penerapan 4G, 5G. Jadi sebetulnya yang jadi duluan waktu itu adalah WiMAX sebelum ke LTE. Tapi WiMAX kurang berkembang karena memang tidak didukung banyak operator, sementara 4G LTE didukung banyak operator. Jadi yang banyak berkembang adalah 4G LTE. Ya, itu saja dari saya, materinya cukup banyak ya tentang ini. Silahkan nanti dilihat lagi. Saya kira itu. Saya buka sesi pertanyaan kalau memang ada yang mau bertanya. Silahkan.
Nggak ada mungkin Pak.
Oke, yaudah kalau nggak ada silahkan dibaca-baca lagi ya. Kalau memang nanti gambarnya kurang jelas, videonya kalau penasaran silahkan dilihat-lihat lagi di YouTube. Mudah-mudahan bisa bermanfaat buat kalian. Saya kira itu aja, saya tutup ya. Terima kasih atas kehadirannya hari ini. Kemudian jangan lupa Rani ya, Rani hari Senin ya, Rani ya?
Iya Pak, jam berapa itu ya Pak?
Jam 8 aja mulai ke kampus ya.
Oh iya Pak.
Nah. Kemudian udah kita di tampilannya. Oke. Saya matikan dulu. Stop sharing. Oke, begitu saja. Saya kira cukup. Terima kasih buat semuanya. Saya tutup. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.